He is the next coach of Hawthorn, and that succession plan is the subject of much conjecture and speculation at the moment. Sam Mitchell, welcome to the program.
Yeah, how are you, Gerard? It's been quite the baptism of fire to start out, hasn't it?
I'm sure it has been, so I'll do you the courtesy of asking these questions as directly as possible. Sam, have you suggested you want to be Hawthorn coach next year and would prefer Alastair Clarkson not be at the Hawks?
Absolutely not. That has not happened. We've been working on some form of succession for such a long period of time. If you will do me the privilege, I will explain how long ago this has started and how it's still all on track. There's still plenty to work out, of course. But in 2016, if you go that far back, when I left to go to West Coast, Clarko said it'll be great for him. I know he's got coaching aspirations. Great for him to get some experience at a new club. Then he rang me halfway through 2018 and said, it'd be great to come back. It would be ideal if, you took over from me at some stage, and no promises, but that would be a great situation for us. So let's try to work towards that. And then over the last 3 years, I've gone to footy subcommittee meetings and started talking, developing my own skill set. And, over my journey, having been part of all of these stepping stones, this was always a part of it. And so a little while ago, and this is all public knowledge, which some people love and get right into, and some people, they pick and choose the parts they want to talk about. But as soon as I knew that the club was not going to reappoint Clarko, my options became to continue on and attempt to go for the Collingwood job, or if not do that, I knew someone else was going to coach Hawthorn in 2023. And so they gave me the option of taking that, which I said, I've built such a strong relationship. It's been in plan for such a long period of time, and now it's coming around. So to me, I'm a little bit bemused by the whole situation that I've been working with Clarko for the best part of 20 years consistently, but apparently we still don't get along.
Have you thought back over last week's meeting? Is it possible anything that you expressed in that meeting could have been misconstrued as wanting to take over next season?
No, I'm not. I don't think that is part of it. That everyone talks about that meeting like it's been a one-off. It's the only time we've ever met. And I've heard some of the media reports talking about it, that sort of thing. It's like, if you're in an organisation like Hawthorn, you are going to have all of these discussions all the time. And if you all agree on everything, then what's the point in having so many people doing it? You have to have people with differing views all the time. And part of what happened in that one particular meeting, which was actually on a Tuesday, not a Wednesday, if we want to talk about some of the details that are an example of what's missing, is we caught up. Everyone knew that we were doing it. We were going to work our way through how we get from where we are to where we need to get to. And at the end of that meeting, we did not have every answer, which, would be plain for anyone to see that when you're working through something this big, it's going to be a continual work in progress, and we'll meet again. But everything that we are working towards is Clarko coaching next year. Me maintaining the role, which I love, working with all these young fellas and watching them progress. And now a heap of them are getting games at the moment. And it's great to watch them. I'm absolutely loving that, trying to get the VFL season back up and going. So everything we're doing is trying to work towards what next year looks like with Clarko coaching and with me in my current role.
So is it your absolute desire to work in concert with Alastair next year?
Absolutely. 100%. I think the perfect situation here is we don't have the answers right now about how that works. But we absolutely are planning every aspect of what we're doing right now is to try and work out how we can, everything's a little bit grey. So recruiting, for instance, will be mainly my area and Clarko would be involved. And the game plan is mainly Clarko's area and I would be a little bit involved. But we're just working on all these little details, and that's part of what a good organisation does. They have to plan for the future. And at the moment, we're 17th on the ladder. And everyone at Hawthorn is working so hard, Clarko, myself, all the other assistant coaches who have been involved in all of these meetings, and that they see that we have a really strong, healthy working relationship. And yet all of these people in the, that have a genuine lack of knowledge of the internal workings. And there's always, I spoke to this person at the club and I spoke to that person at the club. But I find it very, very hard to believe that anyone is speaking to anyone at the club that says that we don't get along, because it's not a reality.
Do you think, Sam, that Alastair is invested in developing you as a coach?
Yeah, of course he is. So around, it might not have been quite this time, a bit later on, but this time last year, Clarko said, I think it would be great for you to coach Box Hill and get involved in that aspect, because I think if you have your own team, that's an important part of your resume. So he suggested that, and I thought about it for a little while, went and asked a few people, rang a few people who I thought, would I trusted their opinion, and they said, I think that would be great for you. And then being the head of development as well has been brilliant. I absolutely love working with the young guys. I just got a text before off a couple of our young guys. They're taking their own sessions now. I'm working really hard with the guys at Box Hill trying to get that season back up and going. I absolutely want to work with Clarko next year, and that's every piece of planning that we're doing is working towards that.
Did you use the Box Hill president to broker the coaching contract rather than your long-term manager, Peter Lenton, as a desire to keep things quiet, Sam?
Absolutely nothing to do with keeping it quiet. I'd been working closely with Peter Lenton. He rang me this morning just to see how I was, see all this media stuff. What's going on? Are you all right? So, we're still really close. It absolutely had nothing to do. I don't know. I did read that somewhere this morning, and I don't put the two together whatsoever. I know that Ed's got good relationships with Hawthorn, and I thought that he would be a good person that I could talk to regularly about this. And I decided to start going down that path with him. But it absolutely had nothing. I swear on anything that has nothing to do with keeping it quiet. My understanding of what happened between the club and Clarko was that they told Clarko that he wouldn't be reappointed after next year. So that was one thing that happened. The next thing that happened is they approached me to say, Clarko's not going to be appointed at the end of next year. Would you like to take this job? And it was at that time that I pulled out of the Collingwood job. And I decided I didn't want to pursue Collingwood because I'd invested so much in Hawthorn and have invested so much for such a long time that I was so passionate about what we can do with Hawthorn and our development and our future that I decided that I would, rather than let Hawthorn go through a process of finding a new coach in 2023, that would be something I would absolutely be proud and honoured to do.
So that sequence of events, Sam, is it important that people understand that you didn't take Clarkson's job?
Well, I must admit I've been a bit disappointed with people saying that. I probably shouldn't say it on radio, but I kind of get a bit pissed off with people saying that. Like, there's nothing about anything I've done. I've worked with Clarko for nearly 20 years. And the fact that people would say that I'm trying to push him out is disrespectful to both of us, because we've had a working relationship for such a long period of time that I did get a little bit frustrated with people saying, oh, he's just trying to get Clarkson out. I could have, if I wanted to coach next year, I would have continued to pursue the Collingwood opportunity if it went that way. They're a very good club, and I've got a good relationship with Graham Rice, and I could have continued down that path if that was what I wanted. So every piece of evidence says that isn't true. So
Alastair, it would seem, is disappointed that he is not going to continue as coach separate to your arrangement. Are you aware of that? Have you spoken to him about that?
Oh, well, my conversations with Clarko are around that. It's really for him to speak of. But Matthew, his son, finishes school at the end of next year at Caulfield Grammar. So he's going to finish school next year, and he was ready. My understanding was he was ready for to be an option for him. And I don't know what happens between the club and Clarko, whether Clarko wanted to be continuing on. And that's not my area to get involved in. The only part that I know is that Clarko was not going to be reappointed. That was the board's decision. And that was a separate thing to me taking over. The options that came to me were Hawthorn can go through a process for 2023, or you can do the job. And to me, I was desperate to do the job. I love Hawthorn. It's a fantastic club that I've invested half of my life into, and I want to continue to try and improve us.
Is there a risk that a succession plan can hold back progress for 12 months, Sam?
I guess nothing is nothing is risk-free. But I think Clarko is an absolute professional, and I've learned a lot from a lot of different people, him being a significant person in all of that, of course. And we will continue to work on how we can get the best outcome over the next 12 months. From a public point of view, what we need to do is put separately what's public and what's private. I think what will happen is every time we win, what will you guys in the media say? You'll say, oh, Alastair Clarkson, he's the master. Why would they be moving him on? And every time we lose, the AFL team is going to lose. Then what's going to happen is they're going to say, oh, the succession is causing them not to perform as well as they can. So in every game, there's going to be external noise that comes to us. What we need to be really strong with, and which we're still in the process of working out, is internally what our messaging looks like, how we work together on a day-to-day basis, who's in charge of what, and how we can get the best outcome for the club. Because at the end of the day, one thing that you could never say about either myself or Alastair Clarkson is we don't have absolute loyalty to the Hawthorn Football Club.
Can you work coherently? Can you find the middle ground that serves the team in the here and the now and the future?
Well, my argument would be, could you do the opposite? So could you work with someone who thought everything exactly the same as you? Because to me, in any discussion, in any business, in any organisation, there's differing views. When we sit in our match committee with 5 or 6 coaches, if we all thought exactly the same thing, then I don't think that club is employing very well. So everyone has a different view. Everyone has a differing opinion. And that is what great, robust decision-making has to come from. And that's where good decisions come from. Good decisions don't come from people all thinking the same thing sitting in a room. Good decision-making comes from great, vast different personalities and different profiles coming together, being open-minded and finding the best outcomes and then delivering those outcomes as a collective unit where anyone who's not inside that room knows it's a unanimous decision. Most of my days are spent in the long term. So on Monday, I couldn't go into the club because I had to isolate through COVID, wait for my test and all that sort of thing. So Monday, I spent most of the day on my computer looking at strategic plans for the next 5 years. And so when you've got a lens of a 5+ years that you're looking at, the next 6 weeks, 16 months, 6 months, this whole little period, 6 days, 6 hours, it does pale into a little bit of insignificance. By the time I take over, all these stories will be well and truly somewhere else, and there'll be a different thing being spoken about. And really my job is about the long term. So very much what I'm doing is looking at the longer term stuff. So I'm not too concerned with what happens right here and right now from a public perception point of view.
So Sam, is there any circumstance you can foresee in which you're coaching Hawthorn next year without Alastair at the club?
No. Everything we're planning right now, the so-called meeting that we had, which is one of a numerous amount of meetings that we have had and will continue to have, will be around planning for Clarko to coach next year, me to coach Box Hill, me to be really heavily invested in the development of the youth of Hawthorn, of which by the time I take over will become the core of the club, because guys like our 4th and 5th year players will be coming right into their prime, and we've got a lot of players really well talented, really highly talented. Go back to the draft again this year, get some more players in, and I'll be able to work really closely with these guys because that will actually be my role. So I just see it playing out exactly as we've said it is going to.
Yep.
And the only people that are saying it's not going to work out like that are people with a genuine lack of knowledge who say they're speaking to people at the club, but every piece of evidence says the contrary.
So would it worry you if that information was coming from anyone at the club?
Yes. Of course. It hasn't been a great, we haven't been able to keep some things in. But then there's some other things that are coming out saying, well, that didn't happen, and that's not reality. So I'm not worried about leaks because they're pretend. They're people who heard second or third or fourth hand, or some of the stuff is blatantly made up. And I'd say a vast majority of it has been blatantly made up. Now, whether it's made up by the media itself or someone telling them things for their own agendas, I've got no idea. All I can focus on is my role right now and planning for the long term.
Sam, thanks for fielding the questions. Good luck with what's to come.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, Gerard.
Yes, it has been a baptism of fire. So Sam Mitchell answering the direct questions. It's now to be interpreted, I'm sure.